Ladies and gentlemen, most people misunderstand discipline. They see it as a cage, rules, routines, and rigidity that suffocates spontaneity. But from the soldier's lens, discipline is not confinement. It is the path to liberation. It is the bridge between the self you are now and the self you were designed to become. Discipline isn't about punishment. It's about precision. It's a sacred commitment to becoming a master of your internal environment so that the external world no longer dictates your responses. In the battlefield, the soldier doesn't have the luxury of reacting emotionally. Every move is life or death. There is no room for chaos. Therefore, the soldier trains relentlessly, not just to sharpen reflexes, but to embed a state of readiness into the nervous system. The body becomes a living map of intentionality. Discipline wires the brain. Neuroscience shows us that repeated actions reinforce neural circuits. Over time, what begins as effort becomes instinct. The soldier doesn't need to think to respond. The patterns are already programmed, but what's more important than reflex is the inner architecture being built. An identity rooted in self-command. This is where true freedom begins, when you no longer need to be rescued from your own impulses. People often believe freedom is doing whatever they want, whenever they want, but that's not freedom. That's enslavement to mood, to emotion, to the fluctuating signals of the world. The soldier sees it differently. Freedom is when your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are aligned with a vision you've consciously chosen, not one inherited from society, fear, or past trauma. Discipline, then, is how we turn intention into embodiment. The brain thrives on patterns. It resists the unknown because it favors energy efficiency. The old self, the reactive self, the emotional self, lives in a predictable loop, but discipline interrupts that loop. When you wake up before comfort tells you to, when you train when motivation is absent, when you hold to your purpose instead of your pain, you are teaching your body that a new mind is now in charge. This is how a soldier evolves, not through theory, but through repetition, through action, through deliberate disobedience to the old story. In the military, drills are repeated thousands of times not to break the person, but to make the person into someone who is dependable under fire. But this principle isn't reserved for combat. It applies to anyone with a vision, the writer, the healer, the leader, the parent. The disciplined person is free because they can trust themselves. They don't negotiate with procrastination. They don't wait for the stars to align. They move when the mission calls. Discipline also recalibrates the nervous system. When you consistently show up for a higher version of yourself, the brainstem learns to feel safe in challenge. You don't flinch in discomfort anymore because your body has learned that growth does not equal danger. In fact, you begin to seek it. Your mind rewires from survival to expansion. You must understand this. The brain doesn't know the difference between a battlefield and your morning alarm clock. Every moment you override resistance, you signal power to your subconscious. Every time you choose commitment over convenience, you're altering the chemicals of identity. Cortisol falls, dopamine rises, not from entertainment, but from self-alignment. This is not theory. This is biochemistry. The soldier's discipline is not cold or mechanical. It's spiritual. It's a devotion to something higher than circumstance. It is the soul saying, I will not be ruled by my environment. I will shape it by the quality of my being. And over time, that kind of energy becomes magnetic. Others feel it. The world begins to respond to a person who has organized their inner world. Opportunities come. Clarity rises. Peace, paradoxically, enters. Because when you become the one who chooses their thoughts before the world chooses them for you, when you learn to stand still inside even as the chaos swirls around you, when you build a life not on feeling, but on principle, you begin to taste a different kind of freedom, the kind that no one can give you and no one can take away. The soldier walks into the battlefield not merely to face an external enemy, but to confront a much more cunning adversary, the one that hides within. This internal battlefield is invisible to the eye, but loud in the mind. It is here, in the silent trenches of thought and emotion, that the real war begins. Every human being, whether they wear a uniform or not, wakes up inside a battleground of beliefs, fears, doubts, and memories. We are all soldiers in that regard, and what separates those who rise from those who retreat isn't physical strength. It's inner sovereignty. It's whether or not you've trained your mind to serve you instead of sabotage you. The battlefield within is relentless. It does not sleep. It is the whisper of inadequacy before a dream takes flight. It is the pull of the past, convincing you that the future will only ever be a repeat of yesterday. It is the neurochemical addiction to fear, to control, to worry. And unless you learn to name your enemy, it rules you. It will disguise itself as logic. It will dress up as realism. It will tell you that comfort is peace. But the soldier knows better. The soldier sees through the disguise. When you close your eyes, when the noise of the world fades, what do you hear? Whose voice is narrating your limitations? That's where the war lies. Not in the outer circumstances, but in the way you perceive them. Your body may be free, but if your mind is held hostage by patterns you haven't questioned, then you're still in chains. The mind, left untrained, becomes a tyrant. Neuroscience shows us that over 90% of our thoughts today are recycled from the day before. That means most people are living in a loop, mentally reliving the same conflicts, emotionally anchoring to the same pain, and unconsciously reinforcing the same self-identity day after day. The battlefield is not out there. It is the war between who you have been and who you are becoming. This war is not loud. It is subtle. It's in the decision to scroll instead of study. It's in the excuse dressed as justification. It's in the impulse to react instead of reflect. Every moment you're choosing a side, either reinforcing the familiar or stepping into the unknown. And the unknown is where the discomfort lies, but it's also where transformation begins. The brain, wired for safety, resists change, even positive change, because the known, even when it's painful, feels predictable. That's why people remain stuck. Not because they're incapable, but because the war inside is waged between comfort and courage. This soldier learns that fear is not the enemy. Fear is the signal. It reveals where the edge is, and what you do at the edge defines everything. In the military, soldiers are trained to override the survival response. Not to suppress fear, but to move through it. That's the kind of mental training we all need, because fear doesn't go away when you achieve something. It fades when you train your nervous system to interpret risk differently. Emotions are chemical storms in the body. Each thought sends a signal. Each feeling reaffirms a pattern. When your internal dialogue is wired to stress, your body memorizes it. It becomes addicted to survival, constantly scanning for threat, even when none exists. This is the inner war. To break free, you must become conscious of your unconscious reactions. You must sit with your emotional patterns and learn their source, not to judge them, but to rewire them. The battlefield within is where habits are exposed. It's where identity is questioned. It's where the ego fights to stay in control, while your higher self starts to speak in whispers. And in that moment, you are forced to choose. Do I repeat or do I rise? The soldier doesn't rise because conditions are perfect. The soldier rises because he has decided that his inner state will not be dictated by the chaos around him. He knows that victory on the outside begins with order on the inside. That's why the battle within matters more than any fight out there, because if you win there, you can walk into any storm and remain unshaken. Pain is often misunderstood. Most people avoid it, suppress it, medicate it, or run from it. They are conditioned to believe that pain is a punishment, a signal that something has gone wrong, that life is off course. But the soldier sees differently. To the soldier, pain is not a curse. It is a portal, a passageway into the deeper self, a fire through which false identities are burned away and something more real, more resilient is born. There's a strange intelligence within pain. It doesn't arrive without reason. It visits us as a teacher, cloaked in discomfort, carrying lessons that can't be accessed through comfort. From a biological standpoint, pain activates the brain's limbic system. It demands our attention. It disrupts autopilot. Pain pulls us out of mental sleep. It forces presence. It's raw. It's undeniable. And in that state of alertness, you're closer to your core than ever before. But most people resist this process. They recoil, shut down, escape into distractions, and numb the sensation. They never realize that by avoiding pain, they're also avoiding the transformation that lies hidden inside it. Because pain does something sacred, it breaks routine. It interrupts the known, and it's in that interruption that the doorway to higher consciousness opens. Every soldier understands this truth intimately. Their training pushes the body beyond its limits. Muscles ache, skin blisters, minds scream, but the soldier doesn't stop there. He leans in, he listens, because he knows that beyond the edge of pain is where the new self begins. The battlefield doesn't just expose physical endurance. It surfaces the trauma, the fear, the grief, the suppressed beliefs. It confronts the psyche with everything that's been buried beneath distraction and duty. And in that confrontation, there is choice. Do I collapse or do I transcend? From a neurological perspective, emotional pain also rewires the brain. Every thought laced with sorrow or struggle sends a chemical cascade through the body. The brain doesn't just think pain, it remembers it. It stores it. And if you don't become conscious of that pattern, pain becomes your identity. Your body learns the story of suffering until it plays it automatically, even without a trigger. But the portal opens when awareness enters, when you become the observer of pain instead of the victim of it, when you sit with your discomfort, not to feed it, but to study it. Where did it begin? What belief does it expose? Who would you be without the story that created it? This is the soldier's gift, the capacity to stay present in agony, to breathe inside the wound, not to mask it, but to find the map it contains, because every pain is coded. It contains data, and when you decode it, when you ask, what is this trying to teach me about my boundaries, my worth, my mission? You activate a new neural sequence. You begin to reframe experience, and that shift in perception sends new chemicals into your bloodstream. Neuroplasticity is awakened. You're not just surviving pain anymore. You're alchemizing it. There's something else. Pain strips away illusions. It's the great clarifier. In moments of pain, superficiality dies. What truly matters rises to the surface. You stop pretending. You stop pleasing. You stop negotiating your truth. Pain doesn't ask for permission. It brings you face with what you've been hiding from. And in that confrontation, there's an invitation. Step through this. Let the version of you that was built to survive fall away so that the one who was born to lead can step forward. The soldier knows that pain isn't the enemy. Numbness is a life so anesthetized, so filtered that it never dares to feel, never dares to break, and therefore never dares to evolve. Growth is violent in its beauty. It tears down, it rebuilds, it demands discomfort. And pain is the threshold between who you are and who you must become. Pain carves space. It makes room. It dismantles everything that no longer serves. And in the aftermath, in the silence left behind, something sacred happens. Clarity sharpens, presence expands, the ego dissolves just enough to let the soul breathe again. A soldier does not wake up wondering what the day might bring. He wakes with mission in his bloodstream. His movements are deliberate, his focus refined. He doesn't need to be convinced to act because purpose is already pulsing through his nervous system like voltage. Purpose is not a slogan or an affirmation. It is an energetic code that organizes thought, emotion, and behavior into alignment. It is a weapon, sharp enough to cut through distraction, strong enough to pierce through fear. Most people walk through life unarmed. They drift, they wait, they follow whatever voice is loudest in the moment, but the soldier doesn't. The soldier is tuned to one frequency, the mission, and that mission creates internal coherence. When purpose is clear, the mind stops wandering, the body becomes obedient, the heart beats in rhythm with a higher order. Neuroscience confirms this. When we live with purpose, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of conscious decision-making, activates with intensity. Dopamine, the chemical of drive and motivation, is released not from external reward, but from internal alignment. The brain literally lights up when you know why you're doing what you're doing. This isn't just psychology. It's neurobiology. Purpose creates coherence between thought and action, intention and behavior. Without purpose, people collapse under pressure. They hesitate, they second, guess, because there's no guiding system. There's no internal compass. But with purpose, decisions become simple, not easy but clear. You stop asking if something is hard, and you start asking if it's necessary. You stop negotiating with your lesser self. You stop needing the world to validate you, because your energy is being drawn from something deeper than applause. The soldier is not moved by comfort. He is moved by mission. Purpose gives him access to energies that others don't touch. It grants him stamina in exhaustion, focus in noise, and stillness in chaos. Purpose is not emotional. It is foundational. Emotions fluctuate, but purpose roots. Emotions may resist, but purpose command. Purpose transforms pain. Without it, pain feels meaningless. It becomes a reason to stop, to retreat, to shut down. But when pain is filtered through purpose, it becomes fuel. It becomes proof of commitment. The soldier understands this. Pain is not a signal to quit. It is a signal that he's engaged in something that matters. Purpose reframes suffering into sacrifice. This is why purpose must be personal. It cannot be inherited. It cannot be copied. It must be chosen, activated, and encoded. When a person wakes up and decides, "This is who I must become," every cell starts to listen. The body organizes around that declaration. The subconscious mind begins to form new patterns, new behaviors. The old self starts to dissolve, not through force, but through irrelevance. When the new identity is linked to purpose, the old identity has nothing left to cling to. The soldier doesn't rely on motivation. Motivation is a mood, and moods are fleeting. Purpose is strategy. Purpose is discipline's partner. Purpose is what answers the question, why keep going, when nothing around you makes sense. It's what speaks when fear is loud, when fatigue is heavy, when the path is unclear. Purpose whispers, keep moving, not because the next step is guaranteed, but because the mission demands it. Purpose awakens vision. It extends the horizon. It breaks you out of survival and puts you into service. It pulls you out of reactive states and into generative ones. Your nervous system stops bracing for threat and starts reaching toward possibility. The very chemistry of your being begins to change. cortisol drops, stress dissolves, coherence in the heart and brain increases. You stop living from memory and start living from imagination. Purpose is also a shield. When the world criticizes, when failures happen, when you're misunderstood, purpose absorbs the hit. It reminds you that your life is not about being liked. It's about being aligned. And in that alignment, you develop a kind of inner armor, not hard or rigid, but rooted and unshakable. The soldier doesn't carry his weapon for show. He carries it with sacred responsibility, and in the same way, purpose is not something you talk about. It's something you wield. It is the reason behind your breath, the aim behind your effort, the fire inside your silence. The soldier is not born with an unshakable mind. He is trained into it. That steel, like focus, that calm in chaos, that unwavering presence. It is not instinct, it is installation. Just as muscle is built under resistance, the mind is built under repetition. Every command followed, every doubt overridden, every reflex reconditioned. It's not just discipline, it's transformation. Identity isn't inherited, it's rehearsed, it's chosen. It's forged in the repetition of intention until the old self no longer fits the operating system of the new mind. We are taught to believe that identity is fixed, that who we are is a byproduct of personality, genetics, upbringing, but neuroscience tells a different story. Identity is malleable, plastic, flexible. It lives in the neural networks we fire most often. You think a thought once, it's a possibility. You think it 1,000 times, it becomes a belief. You feel an emotion long enough, and it hardwires into your nervous system as a trait. This is how you become someone, through internal repetition. The soldier understands this mechanism. He trains the body, but more importantly, he trains the mind of the body. He reconditions the way he thinks under stress, the way he breathes under pressure, the way he chooses when emotion wants to hijack decision. This training is not accidental. It's not motivational. It's deliberate neuroprogramming. And it is available to everyone, not just those in uniform. Your mind is programmable. Your subconscious is a sponge. Every experience you've had, every word you've accepted, every emotion you've indulged, it's all been downloaded into your operating system. And until you become conscious of those programs, they will keep running the show. You'll wake up every day thinking you're making new choices, but you're really just rehearsing old loops. The mind isn't choosing your future. It's reliving your past. To reprogram identity is to break that loop. It's to stop being a slave to your memory and start becoming a visionary of your future. The soldier doesn't rise to the level of his emotion. He drops into the level of his conditioning. When he's exhausted, he doesn't rely on hope. He relies on wiring. That wiring has been practiced, embedded, ritualized, so when chaos comes, he doesn't need to figure out who he is. He knows. Training the mind is not about positive thinking. It's about deliberate rewiring, thought by thought, pattern by pattern, and it requires friction. You must interrupt the unconscious behavior. You must notice the moment you go to react with fear, to collapse into insecurity, to rehearse limitation, and choose differently. That moment of choice is where the old identity begins to dissolve, and the new one starts to download. This is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice. The brain changes through repetition and emotion. Every time you mentally rehearse the future version of you, with detail, with clarity, with emotional intensity, you are installing a new pattern. You are conditioning the nervous system to feel what hasn't yet happened. And over time, your body begins to believe it's real. This is how identity is shifted, not through external proof, but through internal rehearsal. The soldier doesn't wait to feel ready. Readiness is not an emotion, it's a decision. He steps into the new pattern again and again until the mind no longer argues, until the new identity is more familiar than the old self, and eventually the body follows. The old emotions fall away. The old behaviors lose their grip. The personality reconfigures to match the vision, not the memory. Reprogramming the identity is a spiritual act. It means you no longer define yourself by what you've survived, but by what you're becoming. It means you stop waking up as the echo of yesterday, and you start waking up as a broadcast of the future. This requires vigilance, awareness, commitment. It's not about faking it. It's about installing it. You choose the new thought. You install the new response. You speak the new truth, even when your body wants to shrink back into silence. The soldier uses visualization not as fantasy, but as rehearsal. Every mission is lived first in the mind. Every outcome is imagined before it's executed. And that's what we must learn to do, to see the version of ourselves that is free, grounded, powerful, and to live from that signal. Not someday, now, repeatedly, intentionally, until the frequency of that future becomes the dominant broadcast in the brain and body. In the heat of combat, when the air thickens with uncertainty and the unknown screams louder than the plan, a soldier has one choice that determines everything: presence or panic. The same is true for life. When reality becomes unstable, when systems collapse and chaos floods the mind, panic is the reflex, but presence is the mastery, and presence is not a passive state. It is an energetic command to stay in your body when your nervous system wants to flee. It is not just being here, it is being here with power. Panic is what happens when the mind projects into a future it cannot control. It's the neurological hijack of the imagination. The body floods with stress chemicals, cortisol, adrenaline, and the heart races not from danger, but from the perception of danger. The primitive brain takes over, rational thought dims, reaction replaces response. The mind spins and the body follows, but presence is a return to center, a reconnection to the intelligence of now. In presence, the breath deepens, the thoughts slow, the heart rate stabilizes. The mind becomes aware of itself. This is not merely psychological. It is physiological. Presence restores balance to the autonomic nervous system. It shifts the body from survival mode to sovereign mode, from threat to awareness, from panic to clarity. A soldier is trained to master this shift, not by suppressing fear, but by converting it. Panic may knock, but presence answers. The training is internal first, because no matter how external the mission may be, victory always begins inside. When the mind races to worst case scenarios, presence says, return to what's real, return to what's in front of you, the breath, the next step, the truth in this moment. Presence is not passivity, it's precision. It is the state of full coherence between mind, body, and environment. When you are present, your senses heighten, your decisions sharpen, and time seems to stretch. The chaos outside slows down because your awareness speeds up. That's not magic. That's neurology tuned to clarity, and the brain, when synchronized with presence, activates the prefrontal cortex, the center of will, focus, and foresight. The mind is no longer reactive. It becomes directive. Most people live in a loop of unconscious panic, not dramatic, not explosive, but subtle. A quiet hum of worry, overstimulation, fragmented attention. They're not fully here. They're one step ahead in fear or two steps behind in regret. Their body is present, but their energy is elsewhere, and the cost is high. Health suffers. creativity dims, relationships fracture, because the power of life, the real power, is always in this moment. And when you're not here, you lose access to it. The soldier understands this. In combat, the greatest weapon is not the gear, it's the internal state. A scattered mind misfires. A panicked soldier reacts to shadows. But a present one sees clearly. He feels the rhythm beneath the noise. He trusts the breath beneath the fear, because presence is trust not of the external outcome, but of the internal alignment. Presence is a discipline. It must be practiced, and it starts in the body, because the body is always here, even when the mind is not. Train the breath, and you anchor the mind. Connect with sensation, and you deactivate projection. It's not about becoming emotionless. It's about not being owned by emotion. The soldier feels everything, but he's enslaved by nothing. That is the result of presence. In presence, awareness becomes choice. You are no longer a passenger in the storm. You become the eye of it, calm, commanding, rooted. Panic says, "What if I can't handle this?" Presence says, "I already am." Panic looks outward, searching for rescue. Presence looks inward, activating resilience. One is noise, the other is signal, and the body knows the difference. Presence is not found, it is created, chosen, trained. It is a frequency that must be tuned, not just once, but over and over. In discomfort, in noise, in the middle of uncertainty, that's where the refinement happens. You return to presence when it matters most, not when it's easy, but when your system wants to flee. That's the real battlefield, not the chaos outside, but the ability to stay here when everything tells you to disappear. There comes a moment in every warrior's path when the mission ceases to be about self. When the hunger for validation dissolves, when personal glory no longer satisfies the deeper ache of the soul, that moment marks the emergence of a higher consciousness. It is the shift from survival to service. From individual identity to unified purpose, the soldier understands this moment not as an idea, but as a visceral truth. He knows what it means to serve something greater. In a world trained to chase self-interest, service appears as weakness. But real power is born not in domination, but in devotion. When your actions are fueled by something beyond your ego, your energy changes, your posture shifts, you tap into a force that the ordinary mind cannot access. Biology transforms, neural pathways rewire. The chemistry of fear is replaced by the frequency of purpose. This is not a metaphor, it's measurable. When you serve a cause greater than yourself, the body produces higher order emotions: gratitude, compassion, unity, awe. These aren't soft, they are supernatural. They pull you out of primitive states and elevate you into expanded states of being. Serving something greater does not mean abandoning self. It means expanding beyond it. It means realizing that the breath you take is connected to every life form that breathes with you, that your choices ripple, that your energy contributes to the collective field. The soldier knows that his discipline, his sacrifice, his courage, it's not just for his own survival. It's for his brothers, his sisters, his family, his nation, his values, his God. Whatever name you give to it, the truth remains, meaning multiplies when it is shared. This is the secret to sustainable strength. When your why is only about you, it fractures under pressure. It collapses under fatigue. But when your why includes others, when your identity includes the whole, your energy becomes exponential. You stop asking, "How much more can I take?" And you start declaring, "As long as they need me, I will not fall." This is the soldier's vow, not to self-preservation, but to higher allegiance. From a neurological perspective, this shift is profound. When a person moves from individual survival to collective service, brainwaves change. Stress-based beta waves give way to heart. brain coherence, the default mode network responsible for self-referencing thoughts, begins to quiet. And in that silence, a deeper intelligence emerges. You begin to feel the field. You begin to move not just with logic, but with instinct. This is what some call flow, others call grace. It is the energy of service flowing through form. Service does not always wear a uniform. You may never hold a weapon, but the battlefield is everywhere, and the soldier's consciousness is available to anyone who chooses to live beyond self. A parent raising a child in integrity. A healer walking into pain without fear. A leader choosing truth when it costs them comfort. These are the warriors of consciousness, and they are united by one thing. They serve what is sacred, not what is safe. When you align with something greater, your actions are guided not by emotion, but by principle. You stop chasing how you feel, and you start honoring what you know. This creates internal congruence, an alignment between thought, behavior, and belief. That alignment emits power. People feel it before you speak, because you're not performing, you're transmitting. You've become a conduit, not just a character. You've moved from seeking significance to embodying significance. Serving something greater purifies you. It burns away the false motives, the vanity, the need to be seen. It leaves behind what is real: presence, honor, humility, and from that space, everything changes. The choices you make, the energy you bring, the people you attract, because now your life is not about accumulation, it's about contribution. You're no longer asking, what can I get? But what can I give that echoes beyond me? The soldier doesn't always get recognition. Often he walks unseen, but the power he carries is not diminished by the world's attention. It is amplified by his own devotion. Because when you serve something greater, you become something greater. You move from form to force, from self to symbol. You no longer need the world to understand your path, because your path is etched into eternity through the integrity of your action. A soldier doesn't train for who he is. He trains for who he must become. He doesn't prepare based on his history. He prepares based on his vision. This isn't ambition. It's identity reconstruction. It is the deep understanding that the version of self you are today is not enough to handle the mission of tomorrow. And that realization isn't a weakness. It is the invitation, the call to evolve, the call to rise into the next iteration of self. The future self isn't out there waiting. It is here, coded inside you, waiting for activation. Most people live from memory. They wake up and automatically download the past, the same thoughts, the same habits, the same identity. Their body leads their day before their mind even checks in. They say they want change, but they keep rehearsing who they were. And the body, the instrument of habit, believes it. It believes in limitation, in fatigue, in familiar pain. So the future remains just that, a concept, not an experience. But the soldier doesn't live that way. He doesn't default to memory. He trains his system to anticipate the future. He practices his role before the battlefield requires it. He visualizes the posture, the breath, the clarity of the man he must become. And through repetition, the brain doesn't just imagine it. It starts to believe it. The neurons begin firing in new sequences. The body starts to memorize the feeling of the future before it arrives. This is not imagination. It is installation. Becoming the future self requires consciousness, the act of waking up, not just from sleep, but from automatic living. You must interrupt the loop. You must override the program. The moment you decide to no longer be the echo of yesterday, your biology starts paying attention. Your genes respond to environment, but the environment is not just external. It's internal. It's the chemical and electrical fields you create through thought and emotion. When you embody the energy of your future self, you create the conditions for that self to emerge. This isn't about faking confidence or forcing motivation. It's about aligning energy with intention. The future self is not an upgrade in achievements. It's an upgrade in consciousness. It thinks differently. It feels differently. It responds differently to stress, to failure, to silence. It carries a different energetic frequency, and that frequency is not something you wait for. It's something you practice until it becomes your default. The soldier rehearses more than action. He rehearses being. He visualizes not just what to do, but how to feel while doing it. Calm under fire, clear under noise, present under pressure. The nervous system doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined future and a real experience. So every mental rep lays down circuitry. Every emotional rehearsal conditions the body. Eventually, the identity shifts. The future self is no longer an idea. It is a lived experience within. This process demands intention. You must choose your thoughts with precision, not based on circumstance, but based on the blueprint of who you're becoming. You ask, how would my future self think right now? What would he believe in this moment? What does his energy feel like in the body? Then you step into it. Not perfectly, but consistently. Each time you override the old self, you weaken the wiring of limitation. Each time you act as the future self, you install the architecture of evolution. The body will resist. It will crave the chemistry of the familiar, fear, doubt, urgency, victimhood, because those chemicals are addictive, but mastery is measured in the moments you choose alignment over habit, in the moments you pause, breathe, and become. This is the path of the conscious warrior. Not reacting from memory, but creating from intention. Not waiting for permission, but initiating transformation from within. Your future self is not waiting in the distance. It's coded in this moment, in the way you sit, the way you speak, the energy you carry. It is not about becoming someone else. It's about removing the layers that kept you from embodying what was always there. You don't find your future self. You remember it. You tune to it. You practice it until the frequency becomes familiar, until your thoughts, your breath, your posture, your choices all reflect the architecture of that version of you.